Welcome to this ADSS webinar. Thank you so much for joining. So this webinar, More Than a Carer, is focused on protecting your relationship and yourself while caring for somebody living with dementia. My name is Beth Lamb. I'm the training manager here at ADSS. I was previously a dementia coordinator, a carer, and I've got lived experience of family members living with dementia too. A bit about ADSS for those who don't know who we are. We are Kent's biggest independent charity solely focused on supporting people affected by dementia. We're an award-winning charity with over 30 years experience delivering these different services for people and their carers from pre-diagnosis throughout their experience with dementia. But I'm very glad to introduce our wonderful panel members. With me today, we've got Sheila Clark, who's an Admiral nurse, Sarita Gibson from Carers First, and Michael West, who is here to share his first-hand experience of caring for a loved one with dementia. I'll let them introduce themselves after a few quick housekeeping points. So first, just know this session is being recorded and will be shared. So if you need to step away at any point or there's someone who you think would benefit from watching this, then you'll be able to see the recording. We'll share that out for everyone. Obviously, some of the topics we discussed today will feel emotional for many, so please do take care of yourself during the session. And while we have lots of experienced professionals and lived experience on the panel, this session is for general information and support only. We're not clinicians and we won't be able to provide any medical advice. So if you've got concerns about someone's health, we would always recommend speaking with your GP or healthcare professional. Mics and cameras are switched off for attendees, but we do really encourage you to take part using the chat. So you can share your thoughts and your experiences as we go through the discussion today. Some of you actually have submitted some questions when registering, so thank you for those. We have used some of them to help shape today's discussion. So with housekeeping done, let's get going. So Sheila, will you please share who you are and a little bit about your role?
Okay, hi. So I'm Sheila Clark and I'm one of the Admiral nurses in Medway. And Admiral nurses are dementia specialist nurses. And there are Admiral nurses that work within the NHS. There are Admiral nurses that work for other organisations in hospitals all across the UK. And there's about 500 across the UK. And we give advice about behaviours, about different stages of dementia. Our focus really is on carers and the family and about helping them with the transitions in care and understanding and negotiating with all the different organisations that support people with dementia and the families.
Thank you so much, Sheila. That's brilliant. So Rita, are you able to introduce yourself and your role?
Yes, my name's Sarita Gibson and I am the adult team lead for Carers First. We support unpaid carers. Our head office is in Strood, but we are actually a national charity that supports unpaid carers. Carers First has been going since 1991. We are also in Essex, in London, Lincolnshire, all over. But we have a bunch of carer support advisors that help carers with their assessments. We do support groups. We can give one-off payments. So we do lots of different things here in Medway. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Sarita. And Michael, are you able to share a little bit about yourself and your experience?
Yes, my name's Michael West. I'm a retired professional engineer. My wife was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's in January 2017. So we've been on somewhat of a journey over those years. We have actually worked very closely with ADSS from the beginning of that time. I just a couple of background issues about how that's progressed, because we've gone from living well through not living well to care home experience with Karen, For a couple of years, Karen was living independently, driving, and I was working for a couple of years. I retired in December 2018 to actually be full-time with my wife. And through 2019, 2020, 21, we were living well with dementia, but on a worsening basis. That included, of course, a period of COVID and lockdown, which was not very good in its own right. But then end of 2021, 22, we went through a period of behavioural issues with Karen and more severe loss of cognitive ability. We got into antipsychotic medication at that point. And in 2023, Karen suddenly lost the ability to walk. And we had to get Karen into respite. She had 4 or 5 weeks of respite, and then we found a permanent place for her in the care home she's now in, which she's been in since October 23. Karen hasn't communicated properly for over 3 years now, and has to have everything done for her. And she resides in a recliner wheelchair all day. So our role has changed significantly over those years. So that's where we are now.
Thank you so much for sharing, Michael, and taking the time to be here. I think your lived experience, and like you said, that experience through that entire journey of different stages is going to have a lot of insight to offer those attending today. So I want to start our discussion today with our audience and just put it out to you to ask, since becoming a carer, what do you find the most difficult? So we know what we're going to discuss today. It might be finding time for yourself. It might be processing the parts of your relationship that have changed, or asking for help, or navigating those different services out there. All of these we're going to discuss today. So please do share in the chat so everyone can kind of discuss and feel that joint resilience of, you're not experiencing this alone. For those who want to share, do share in the chat. No pressure to. But for those maybe not, let's just have a look at some of these statistics. I want to read some of these out. So 70% of unpaid carers report that their mental or physical health has been negatively affected. That was by the Alzheimer's Society last year. And Dementia Carers Count, another charity, last year said 4 out of 5 of their carers they surveyed nationally have reached crisis point due to their caring role. So the question all of us on this panel are working towards answering every day really is, how can we change this? So we're going to discuss the different behavioural strategies, support, that idea of identity, to hopefully offer some guidance and information today to answer this question of how can we change this. So we often say knowledge is power in dementia care. So I want to start by discussing some of these challenges specifically. So the fact that dementia can affect behavioural responses and emotional regulation in a person. The fact that dementia can affect logic centres and processing for somebody. The apathy that it can cause, or the impact on communication, as we've seen in Michael and Karen's case, up to the point where that communication, that verbal communication stops altogether. And this last one here of how short-term memory really impacts how we connect together in a relationship. Whether that's mother, daughter, neighbours, husbands and wives, however you're caring for your loved one. So Sheila, I want to ask you, can you share some of the different ways you see these challenges occur in the relationships, and what tips do you have for some of these challenges?
I suppose the first thing is that I think what a lot of family members don't realise is as time goes on, your relationship does change, and I think sometimes being able to talk to people about that and have some support in managing those changes in your relationship and seeing the positives each time there is a change. So there's that aspect about being aware of that journey that carers go on, as well as the person with dementia. And I think the important thing is being able to communicate with the person with dementia in any shape or form that you can, and being able to keep those connections. And that can be quite a challenge. And I suppose that's why all the organisations that support people, families with dementia, is about understanding that, because you don't get a training manual at the beginning of this. You're lucky if you get 10 minutes with a consultant psychiatrist. So it's a lot of mental health trusts do training and education, but not everybody, for lots of different reasons, aren't able to access that. So really being able to spend time and talk to people about it, whether it's at memory cafes, which is really helpful, getting the support and advice, or actually doing some sort of training.
Absolutely. And I know that's a good plug for our carer learning groups that we offer in Kent and Medway. But yeah, there's so much information out there that can support, and we'll dive into some of those more practical strategies. Michael, are you able to share how you and Karen experienced some of these challenges and the impact this had on you?
Oh, well, as Sheila just said, I mean, it's an ever-changing situation. And you never really know how and when it's going to happen. And we've experienced a lot of changes, and a loss of cognitive abilities, shutting down on a gradual basis. And it's very sad to see the person that you knew disappear, basically, and affecting not just me, but my daughters, my grandchildren. So changes come across in different ways, really. I'll take a couple of examples. I mean, Karen from the outset was singing in the ADSS choir, and she loved that, and that went on all the way through right into 2022. But And that continued with Zoom during COVID as well. But her interest and level of participation, declined. So going from very positive activity to losing interest, not being able to sing, and ultimately we got to the period of behavioural issues, angry issues, which resulted us not being able to actually go to the singing at all. So it's very hard, and and communication became difficult. But you have to change and adapt to the situation you're in at that time. Another one, we were Latin and ballroom dancers, and that was our hobby. But excuse me, I do get emotional about these things.
No, that's absolutely okay, Michael. I can give you a minute if you feel that's needed.
But we had to stop going to classes when it became more difficult. And Karen's interest became less and more difficult. She couldn't learn, and then you have to reach a point where you accept you have to stop, and then go into a different way of dealing with it. And we went to tea dances, but then she lost the interest in that, which is really surprising from what we did. And this is what happens. And then you have to think about who you're doing it for. Are you doing it for her? Are you doing it for you? And you have to make these sorts of decisions, and try and adapt to what your partner can cope with. And adopt a totally different strategy. So I could have lots of different things like that, really, but it's seeing this total, this gradual loss of ability, colouring and painting. You start off, I'm doing this nice detailed colouring in, then it goes to colour by numbers, and then it goes to blocking in block colours and then not doing it at all. And these things are changing all the time, and you're always looking for the things which actually she can still engage with.
Yeah.
And I suppose the one thing that does engage still, even now, is music. And I will say to you before we went on that I was at home with Karen this afternoon, and I take a speaker with me, and I play music that Karen used to like. Whether she's really taking it or not, you're not sure about, but I believe she does. So I play that. So you have to learn to find those little chinks and awarenesses that still exist, really. But
Thank you so much for sharing.
It's a changing situation,
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
we also say our crystal ball is always cloudy, and you can never predict what the change is going to be, but we know it's going to get worse.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So I think some really points around how you found those different ways to adapt depending on what level of interest and energy Karen had for those different activities where you could connect, and some really useful things for people to consider, but also the emotional aspect of some of these changes, how devastating that effect has been, and how important access and support is going through this journey. So I also want to dive a bit deeper into this idea of seeing behaviours and some of these challenges maybe as unmet needs. So what do we actually mean by this? Is looking beyond the behaviour itself to think about what may be causing it when we're coming up against some of these challenges. So I'm going to use a situation sent in to us from one of our attendees who registered. So their loved one was becoming upset and agitated when they're not in the same room as them, and consequently they were saying that person they're not able to have any time alone or a few minutes respite, and obviously their loved one is feeling agitated, and that's not where we want to be either. So we want to view this behaviour as an unmet need, that person is not able to communicate clearly. So I want to put it out to our panel. What possible reasons do you think could be causing this person to become agitated when they're alone? And we're going to look at it through the lens of this useful approach of looking at all aspects of what's going on. Has anyone got any ideas to discuss this challenge?
Well, everyone's different. I actually find this quite hard to answer, actually.
I think
because it depends on your partner, and there's a lot of differences,
Michael, I think that's one of the key points to a lot of these ideas we've discussed on these webinars, is there is no one size fits all in dementia. So that's a really good place to start, actually.
I mean, for me, the issue became more prominent when Karen was communicating less and starting to exhibit more aggressive tendencies, but not all the time. So I felt I had to try and find an activity which may occupy her for a period of time, be it colouring, watching a TV programme, putting on music. We liked walking, and we used walking a lot, and that was very good for us. But it doesn't fit with everybody, but it worked for us. Trying to find the thing that works is the important things. Karen would wander around and see what I was doing. I would get her to prepare vegetables while she could still do it, and actually be with me. But so I was doing something, but she was there. Or be present when making a cake, or coming in the garden with me and sitting in the garden while I was gardening. There was a lot of following me around, but how could I work it that she could be with me and be calm? And I used music then. My speaker, I had my speaker out in the garden, and I was playing music while I was doing the gardening, and just trying to find things which would engage her, if that's worth anything. But no one size fits all is very true.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing those points, Michael. Out to the other members of the panel.
I
was
think,
gonna
sorry.
you go first. You go first.
Sorry. No, I think from the carer support advisors that go out to the people's homes and see them and do an assessment, everyone is different. I think, you know, very much like what Michael was saying, it really does depend on the individual. It could be the time of day, it could be the medication they're on, it could be a sound, it could be something that, you know, has impacted them. So, you know, I've been out to see some unpaid carer, and his wife was curled up in a ball on the sofa and couldn't really get much out of it. Then I've been to someone else's home and she's talking fine, and then she might break down. And so it's very difficult. It's an individual journey, I believe. And one of the things I did a couple of months ago was we had our team and myself went inside of a dementia bus that was put on. Yes, it was put on, and it was very, very interesting to actually put on the shoes and the sounds, not, you know, have the goggles on and understand what a person goes through. And actually that was a real eye-opener for me, because I didn't realize that they had, you know, and you were asked in this little you know, area that you go in, wash up while you've got this sound going on and you can't see and you're feeling this, and all the, you know, all the different things. That was an eye-opener for me, and I only figured that out a couple of months ago. So yeah, that was really interesting. And I think if we have more of those dementia buses going around, it might give people the idea of what's going on with the senses and the bodies, because I didn't realize simple things like pins and needles going up the legs, things like that, you know, and how they feel when they're touching and the sounds. But I would say from my experience and the carer support advisors, every person is different. So it's really hard, I think, to, like Michael was saying, answer that specifically.
Definitely. Yeah, thank you for sharing.
But maybe
Sheila,
keep a diary to see if you can, you know, plan and figure out what might be going on.
Definitely. I think observation is a big thing here. I'll speak about in a minute. Sheila, did you want to share your thoughts?
Just to add, really, because I think families worry about a lot about making sure they can provide the best care, and actually a lot of people will become, you see an increased attachment to you. So it's not, you're not doing anything wrong, it's just that people become much more attached to you because they're very aware that they are struggling in day-to-day life. So they will follow you around because they feel safe. So the need is to feel safe. The other thing that we take for granted, and you learn a lot about psychology when you're supporting someone with dementia and the brain and how it works, is that if you leave the room, they can't figure out where you are and they get quite anxious. So sometimes it's about making sure that they can see you, or like you said, making sure that they've got something to do. So occupation reduces anxiety, reduces worry. So if they're doing something for 10 minutes, that makes them less sort of anxious about where you are and what you're doing. The other thing is, when people are reaching that stage, it might be start to think about having someone with you in the house that can sit with them and do occupation with them, so that the carer gets a break. Because when you're dealing with that 24/7, the carer gets tired very, very quickly. So it's just sort of thinking about those sort of things. Yeah.
Definitely.
Can I just add another point or not? Is that?
Yeah, briefly, Michael. Yeah.
I just wanted about, I mean, the difficulty, I mean, agitation and sources of agitation. I always worked on the principle that even though you might think that your loved one does not know what's going on, never assume that, because you don't actually know what's going on. And I always made it a principle not to try and discuss things about Karen in front of her when that could affect her agitated state. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think you're very much right. And if you are unhappy or tired and distressed, they will pick up on that.
Yeah. Definitely. I think the points that a lot of you made around everyone is different is why detective style thinking is so important, because for this specific person, it could be that their loved one is confused and doesn't know where they are. It could be that they're bored and lacking stimulation. It could be they're unsure on what they should be doing, but we're not going to be able to uncover that that specific unmet need for that specific person, without this detective style thinking of, right, what are they actually displaying? Do they seem anxious, or do they seem restless? Have they been doing something before, or there's been any new experiences if it's a new thing? And if that person can communicate, ask them those probing questions to gain as much information as we can to figure out what that unmet need is and what support being implemented might change this behaviour. And definitely, like Sarita said, keeping a diary will maybe help keep track of some of these clues. So brilliant discussion there. I'm going to move on now to in addition to, you know, changing the way we manage those difficult moments, we also want to be finding strategies to regulate ourselves as carers and reducing that stress. And that will look different for everyone. So, I mean, Sarita, do you know some of the different forms of respite that could ease the caring load and allow us to recharge that you experience in your service?
Yeah, I mean, we have a respite carers group that we work with ADSS at Rochester Baptist Church. So that is something that we do. At Carers First, we also have carefree breaks, but it can be difficult if you haven't got someone to help you to look after the cared for. But we, anywhere in the country, you could go away for 2 nights for £33 a night in some very top hotels. So we do that at Carers First. But I'm just going to open something up that I've got that to talk about. Requesting a carer's assessment is one of the first things to probably do via your local council, is to ask for a carer's assessment under the Care Act 2014. And the assessment would look at the needs of a carer, not just the person you care for. If you're eligible, the council may fund or arrange respite support, such as short breaks, a few hours or a few days, replacement care at home, day centres. So that's one of the first things to maybe think about. And then also the person you care for can also request a needs assessment from the council. And we work, our carers support advisors work with Medway Council 3 days a week. So we're very good at, you know, figuring out, and soon we'll be able to use their database to look things up and support carers even more quickly. So that's really good. And yeah, that's another thing with the needs assessment. It's temporary residential care stays, in-home care workers, covering time. Direct payments is another thing that we work very closely with Medway Council. We have a carers panel once a fortnight. And so they will talk about potential carers that are going to get direct payments. We'll check our system. Are they registered? What can we do? Can we do an assessment? Or if that direct payment's going to take too long, maybe Carers First can come in with a wellbeing payment, because we can offer our carers up to £400 a year wellbeing payment after they've had an assessment. So that's another thing that you can get from the council. And with the direct payments, you get your own money. You can go out there and find your own care, your own respite care, hire a carer, booking short stays and being flexible. That's the good thing about direct payments as well. And obviously ourselves and other caring organisations can also help with that. Carers UK, Carers Trust. We used to be able to use Age UK, but not anymore. Grants and short break schemes, very much a little bit what we talked about as well. NHS continuing healthcare is another one that someone might be able to tap into if you qualify. And I've heard that's really, really good, and they can include respite services as well. So yeah, family and friends, you know, maybe they can help. And then
Absolutely.
for us, we would then register them as well, because everyone's chipping in, you know. And although I'm with the adults, just want to say Carers First also supports carers from the age of 5 upwards as well, young carers as well. So we also have that. Local volunteers and stuff from community groups. We do a group called Caring Confidently, and we had our first one last year. It's 4 sessions, mainly for new carers on our books, but anyone can join. And in those sessions, face to face, we talk about how to look after your own well-being, breathing exercises, different things for yourself, when to take a break, not to feel guilty, talk about the benefits that you're entitled to, and all of those different things. So the next one would be in May. If anyone was interested in coming to the Caring Confidently sessions, the next one starts on the 14th of May as well. So, and sitting services as well, different types of things where someone could stay at home, you could get a break for a few hours. So yeah, I think that might covered most of the respite there.
Thank you so much for sharing all. There's some really, really key resources that people should be aware of. Sheila, I wanted to ask you, what kind of signs do you see, or should carers be aware of, that are showing before maybe that crisis point where we actually need to be thinking we need to get some support or get some breaks in place?
I think for carers, when you're reaching when you're concerned that you're reaching breakdown, which is what we often talk about, it's where, especially if you're not sleeping, if you're not eating, if you've lost your appetite, if you've shouted, you're losing your temper, these are signs that your mind, you want to care, but your body, often people get ill physically as well. And that's your body's telling you that you're getting worn out and you need to take a rest. And it's really important to listen to your body. So definitely ask for a carer's assessment and get support as soon as possible. Before in the NHS, we don't want two patients. We don't want a carer sitting in A&E. Because they haven't reached out and got help and support at home. We want people to care for as long as possible. And as Michael will know, it can be a long journey, and you've got to look after yourself because you've got your rest of your family to think about as well. The person with dementia benefits when you're healthy and happy. That's the best quality of life. And there'll be lots of points along the journey where you need to reset, have a rest, and then you carry on.
Absolutely. No, I think that's amazing advice. And Michael, I wanted to ask you what kind of forms of respite in any form helped you when Karen was living at home?
Well, change in journey again, really. I mean, in the early years, when I would say Karen was living well with dementia, I mean, for 2 years I was working, so I wasn't the support. But when I stopped working, and then I stopped, and I was going to activities with her, and we were working with ADSS, and that in itself was a form of respite, because it's important, because we were taking part together and we were engaging in the social community of dealing with dementia, and we went to the ADSS memory cafes. We were part of the original Kindred Spirits group for early onset with ADSS, and we developed a strong friendship and support group through that, which has stayed with us over the years. And they organised activities that Living Well with Dementia, which I also took part in. They did some boxing, some dancing, some other things.
That's amazing. I think people wouldn't traditionally see that as a break, but you connecting with those other people in the same boat as you.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that impact that has on you as a carer?
That social support is really important. Things that I did. I actually went to the gym, and when Karen was still living well with it, Karen would come with me. She'd have a coffee in the cafe, and I'd do my gym bit.
Oh, brilliant.
I had a carer's assessment through Imago, in fact. This was when it was getting more difficult, actually. And it resulted in me actually getting some grant funding for paying for me to go to the gym and do activities. Also, I got some cleaning support as a direct payment through that, which was useful. And actually, that assessment also then signposted me to getting a social needs assessment for Karen. And then ultimately, that went on for me to get funding for Karen for care at home. And care at home was an important factor for me. But before care at home, Karen was able to go to the Beacon Day Centre.
Mhm.
Okay, so the ADSS Beacon Day Centre gave me 4 to 6 hours of respite where I could go and do something while Karen was at the day centre. And she enjoyed her time there for a period while she was still cognitively able to do that and to join in. But ultimately, with her behavioural tendencies, that changed, and she could not integrate into the day centre group. So she ended coming back home, and I had her at home, and then I had to think, well, what do I do? And at that time, then we took on board ADSS care at home services, and I had blocks of time for care at home, which basically they stayed with Karen, gave her lunch, and looked after her, while I could go and do other things. I actually went to dancing lesson. I carried on dancing.
Amazing.
So I could go out and do that, or you got to do the shopping, you got to do other things, and you need time to do that. And also through Crossroads, I got 3 hours support from Crossroads, 3 hours a week, doing the same thing with Karen. I said initially I was paying for the services, and ultimately I got social services actually paid for care at home. But that was valuable time. And the question is how can you do that? I see friends now who are struggling with not having that support.
Yeah, and I think
I
that's
also
a really
had family support from my daughter who was living with us at the time. She was at dance college, but living with us. But she also gave me support
definitely.
and allowed me to get out. And I went to the carer support meetings because my daughter would actually be able to look after Karen while I was away. And the value of family and friends to give you respite support must not be underestimated. And if people are willing and prepared to give that help, then take it.
Definitely.
But unfortunately,
People do find it hard to do that, don't they?
But I think you do find that a lot of people seem to disappear off the radar as well when you get to that circumstance.
So I think that's a really amazing to hear all those different support services that you benefited from throughout that journey at those different stages. When Karen was able to come out with you, when you needed that support at home. And I think that takes us really nicely onto that discussion on identity, both your own identity as well as how you view that relationship together as well. Because what we've mentioned here already is breaks are vital to enable you to cherish that part of yourself, your identity. Like Michael, you went on and still did those dancing lessons because your identity still matters, but your relationship does still matter. And I think some of those points made today that it's a lot of people find it hard to ask for that help. Or I've even experienced people saying, you know what, I just don't feel like I should lean on the local authority to actually ask for that financial help. But I think a really important statistic to mention here is that unpaid carers in the UK, and Sarita, you'll probably be familiar with this, they save the government an estimated 184 billion a year, and that figure is roughly the equivalent to the entire annual budget of the NHS. So I hope that statistic will ease some of that maybe potential guilt people often feel when it comes to taking time for themselves. But like Sheila said, a healthy carer can continue that role. So it's so important. Does this resonate with you guys on the panel?
Yeah, absolutely. We come across it all the time. You know, when we're doing our assessments and we're looking at our carer's star, which looks at your caring role, time for yourself, your finances, all these different things on the different points of the star. And out of 1 to 5, you know, 1 being the worst, we'll be like, oh, we could do this for you. Oh, you know, is the garden your sanctuary? Well, wellbeing payment will help you to maybe get a gardener and get some stuff. Sometimes people don't want to do that. They feel guilty for taking anything, or, you know, simply applying for carers allowance if they're entitled to it, or any kind of benefit. So yeah, it can come up, and you know, saying earlier, some people just feel like it's their duty. Find that more with maybe more ethnic minorities. They feel it's their duty to look after their mother, and they're not going to get any help from anybody because that's what they're supposed to do, you know, without realizing that they could crash and burn, you know. We do have one of our advisors that works at Medway Hospital 3 days a week. We'll go and visit people on the wards and look out for carers as well. And it's the same sort of thing, really. It's when it's got to crisis, you know, that they can't cope with it. So we're hoping that we can prevent that you join us before that stage and going to our groups, going on our courses that we do and lots of different things. Meeting friends is good. So yeah, it's a roller coaster ride.
Definitely. I think we've spoken a lot about all these different support services out there or approaches we can take, but that can be very overwhelming to navigate for a lot of people, especially on top of managing the day-to-day of actually caring. Some people might feel extremely isolated and not know any of the support that's out there, and others might actually feel really bombarded around, okay, so that's available, how do I apply for this? So I think my question is, what is your advice on where people can start when they're feeling this way?
I think what's interesting is that a lot of people start at different places. Whether it's in the hospital, it's at the memory clinic, it's at the GP surgery, it's at someone that you've had a chat with in the supermarket. I think take your time, be patient, be kind to yourself, you know, listen to what other people are saying, and when you feel ready, ask for help. Whether it doesn't matter which organisation, actually, everybody will pass you along with your permission to get the right, whether it's ADSS, Carers First, a friend, GP, Admiral Nurse, Memory Clinic, any kind of support group. Everybody knows someone and how to get help. But I think the hardest bit is actually asking for help, because we all think we can cope with everything and that I'm different to everybody else, and you're not. It's about getting help so that you can have the best quality of life for yourself and for the person with dementia.
And I think in the order you've got on the screen, I think GP might be the first place to maybe go, because what they can do is they can code you differently on their system. So they know instantly that you are a carer. And then if they know about us, or their social prescribers or the GP know about us, then hopefully they'll signpost you to all the support groups as well, you know. And when someone registers with us, they get a caring pack. You know, they can have something like a carer's card in their purse or wallet if something was to happen to the carer, you know, all of those different things, and all the support groups and everything like that. But maybe just letting the GP simply know that you are caring for somebody
it's so important.
Is the first start, and then hopefully it leads on. But I mean, I was a carer for my daughter with SEN. She's in supported now. I think it's word of mouth for me. Back then, she's 19 now, but back then I didn't know about what you were entitled to. It's who you speak to.
Knowledge is power is something we say all the time.
Yeah,
definitely.
It's a support group. You know, I didn't know that I could maybe get that benefit. It's, you know, it's who you speak to. And I think being active with your communication, and it just leads to different doors being opened.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And it almost sounded like that was your experience, Michael, when you said this led us to then being able to receive this and an assessment for that. I think
it's an evolutionary journey. As I said, it happens in different ways. I mean, we started back in 2017, and we were signposted through to ADSS, who were then a much smaller organisation than they are now. You know, the support groups led us into a lot of networks and information. I think it's probably true to say back then the importance of the carer was not necessarily identified as importantly as it is now, but it is being embraced a lot more, because the carer is as important as the cared for, and I think we must all remember that, because the cared for can only be cared for by a person who's able to do that.
Absolutely.
And it's good that you've got a lot more emphasis now. And you know, the conversations we have with our peer groups lead to a lot of information, in fact, and shared experiences, shared knowledge. And always, I mean, even over the space, I mean, even now, I'm learning new things that I never knew before. So it is an evolutionary process, and you know, we have to keep on board with all the support groups which are out there.
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
So the last question I have for all of you is if you could just say one more piece of advice or one more thing to a carer of somebody living with dementia, what is the message that you would leave them with?
Well, I would say first and foremost, you are not alone, right? And there is a lot of support available, and people coming into this, it's more than one piece. Just quickly,
That's
I mean,
okay.
I think in our area, I think ADS is a very good organisation to start with to help you navigate what's available. I would say if you can consider attending the ADS Carer Learning course, particularly when you start this journey, I think that's a really valuable course, whether it's ADS or somebody else, but learning to try and get into the mind of your loved one. And most importantly, make time for and look after yourself. And that may be different for everybody, but you have to work out how to do that. But you have to make time for yourself. And get away from the direct stress of being a carer and not having that person on your elbow all the time.
Yeah, so important, definitely. So we've got a couple of Q&As to answer, so I'll let you both Sheila and Sarita answer this question before we jump on to those questions to finish the session.
Yeah, I would just say just go, if you get a chance, go along to one of the many memory cafes run by lots of different organisations, and you'll definitely pick up a lot of information from that, and that will help you decide what's going to work for you. Yeah,
definitely. If you've got access to the internet, you know, Dementia UK, lots of support groups, just put something in the Google and see what can come out. Speak to your doctor. Find charities, local charities, see what they can do for you, or you know, the council for that carers assessment.
Absolutely, they've got that statutory responsibility, so always a good place to start, definitely. So the last question I want to ask our audience today is, and have that discussion within the chat, is what is one strength you've discovered in yourself through caring? And while I'll let you answer some of this question, I'm going to just bring some of the questions that have been brought up throughout this session. Okay, so we have, do carers first cover Sittingbourne?
Fortunately, no, we don't.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
It's Involve, isn't it?
I think it's Involve.
Involve.
Yeah, I think Involve would cover Sittingbourne. Yeah.
So Fiona, maybe reach out to Involve for the different specific carer support that is contracted in your area. Thank you. Emma has asked, is there an approved list of carers to approach for respite or support?
The council would have that
local authority,
yeah, they would have that. There is the CQC website as well, Care Commissioning.
Yes,
that's another one that could give you a list of, you'd put in where you are, your postcode and what you're looking for, and it will come out with and give you their ratings on there and everything like that.
I know homecare.co.uk has a really good search function for that, with everyone's CQC ratings. And then if you're looking for care homes for respite, switch that around and type carehome.co.uk.
Definitely,
it's the same thing. Did you use that, Michael?
Definitely, carehome.co.uk. I think it's a very good site for care homes.
Definitely, brilliant. So Julie has asked, can we get carers assessments at any point, even in early stages?
Yes, I believe that you can, as long as you're caring. You're entitled to that legally. You're entitled to a carers assessment. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. Do we have any other questions. Emma has highlighted ensuring you have power of attorney, which is a really, really important thing as well. We've discussed in our previous webinar. So definitely thank you so much for making that point. Emma.
Can I just say we work very closely with Findon Legal in the Medway area, that is.
As do we,
And
yes. They're amazing.
Yeah, and if you say that you heard from them through Carers First, I think you get a little bit of a discount.
But no, definitely, I would actually concur with that. The advice and information from Findon Legal has been absolutely first class over the years. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I would second that. We have a question from Brenda who said, at what point are medications used for aggression or anxiety, and which medications are used? Sheila, are you able to discuss that?
I think the best thing to do is to discuss it with the GP. There are risks and benefits for medications as they are sedative, and sometimes it's about looking at occupation and about other ways to reduce distress. So you do need to think a little bit about it. And obviously you've got the memory clinic and the memory drug, so it's worth contacting Britain House in Medway, the memory clinic, if you need advice about that, or go through your GP.
Can I say on that one?
Absolutely, Michael. I know you experienced that.
Because it relates to, because my wife had these aggressive behavioural tendencies, and it was coming out of COVID. We had to strike up a new relationship with the doctors. So we initially referred to the GP, who then referred us to the mental health centre. And after some to and fro, we actually agreed that Karen, for her, she went on to antipsychotic medication. And actually it did prove to be quite a saviour for us. I mean, I was a bit reticent at first, but we went through it, and it did create a marked change in Karen's behaviours.
I'm glad that was able to support you both. I think we always say the first approach, these medications should never be your first approach. I think going through some of these behavioural techniques of finding those different unmet needs, looking into pain, is actually there some undiagnosed pain that could be causing these changes. And once we've done those investigations or tried these approaches, if that still hasn't worked, then definitely reach out to look into maybe some of these different support methods. Claire has asked, how long on average do people stay on memantine or other dementia drugs? Is there a maximum time?
As long as they need it.
Forever.
They're amazing drugs.
Yeah,
They've
my granddad
transformed dementia care.
That's amazing. My granddad has just, after 2 years of waiting for a diagnosis, he's got his donepezil last week. So that's good news.
But I sometimes think, what would happen if you took them away?
They would deteriorate very quickly.
Karen's been on them from day one, and fortunately she's not had any real side effects, which some people do, but she hasn't, and so she takes it because we believe it's been a positive effect. But I wouldn't like to try taking them away.
No, absolutely.
No.
Julie has asked, can we contact Britain House directly ourselves?
You can, or they may ask you to contact GP for referral, because they like to rule out any physical causes or behavioural issues as well. So they work the Britain House psychiatrists work quite closely with the GPs throughout the area.
Yeah, so Julia, I would ask, at what stage are you at? Do you need to discuss medications? Have you already had a referral or a diagnosis through them? Or is it that starting stage? Because like Sheila said at the start, you'd want to do those dementia bloods to rule out UTIs, anything that could be affecting cognition. But if a diagnosis is in place, you might just want a quick re-referral into the service to
I mean, I think don't hesitate. That we want more people to refer for a diagnosis of dementia. We want people to come forward earlier, because the earlier they come forward, the earlier we can treat with the memory drugs, and that reduces the deterioration. So, and there's no harm in having a test and being checked out by the GP, just to put your mind at rest.
Definitely. Yeah, this is the experience we've just over the last 2 years been with my granddad, is at those very early stages, we got him to the doctors, we knew those symptoms were there. And we went private even, and diagnosis was of MCI, mild cognitive impairment, was given, so no medication was advised. And I thought, well, I can see these symptoms, they're really apparent. If he had this medication 2 years ago, they might not have been advanced as rapidly, but there you go, that's my situation.
Can I just also say on the GP referrals, I think the GP is important. We lost touch with the GP through COVID. We got back in touch afterwards, and I believe it's important that is a good relationship with you, and using the ADSS dementia coordinators to help you if there's any difficulties in communication is also a good thing as well.
Thank you so much for highlighting that, Michael. I think definitely when that those important urgent times, especially where you need to contact the GP over maybe an infection or something sudden changes, and we might be fighting some of those wait times or it's hard to get an appointment, reach out to your dementia coordinator if you are in our areas, and they can advocate for you there. Some of the answers we've had to this question, what is the one strength you've discovered in yourself through caring? Claire has said realizing when to walk away to de-stress situations. That is such a big one. Really, really important skill. Fiona has said thinking outside the box, which again, I think using both of those skills together is a really powerful approaches to manage some of these situations. Claire has also said, Michael, thank you so much for your input here. Speaking from your heart and experience is really kind of you and useful for us. And I definitely echo what Claire has said there. So thank you so much, Michael, and the rest of the panel as well.
I actually wrote down patience and empathy.
Amazing. And I think that is a beautiful place to end on. Let me bring... Someone else has said emotional resilience too, which definitely. So as we come to the end of today's session, I'd like to thank all of you again so much for joining, everyone on our panel, for sharing your professional and also personal insight. And hopefully through this discussion, those joining have maybe felt really that you aren't alone in some of these challenges. We hope you feel a bit more confident in supporting your loved one or understanding what support is out there, and taking that time for you. If you want any more advice, any more support information, all of our links, phone numbers are on the screen here. You can contact us, refer into us. There's also been lots of links shared by Laura, our lovely marketing manager, in the chat for Carers First, for Add More Nurses. So yeah, do share this information. We've said knowledge is power. It can make a real difference to allowing people to continue that caring role. So thank you all so much for joining. The last thing I will say is, as a charity, we do rely on support to continue delivering sessions like this and reaching the people that need it. So if you are able to, as you can see here, get involved in our volunteering, fundraising, partnership working, every bit of help ensures we get the right information and support to the right people at the right time. So I will leave us on that. Thank you all so much for joining today, and please do take care.
Bye.
Bye.